Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Abby and Sarah. We really appreciate ECIS hosting this event, and we're really pleased to be here. And also for you all who are making it at this busy time of the year. Before you came into the room, we were talking about how for everyone it's one of the last weeks of the year and certainly a hectic time, but also a time, we hope, of reflection where you're thinking about what the experience has been for all of the students in your community. And I'm the CEO and co-founder of Belong Hub. My name is Rachel Thrash, and that's the work we do. We really think about how schools can meet the needs of all of our students. And of course, this is what educators want. But so often the reality is that many of our kids come to school and they don't feel like the school is reflecting them. In fact, they feel like they have to fit in to make the school work for them instead of the other way around. And they can feel really isolated. And then when they look at student leadership models, they echo the beliefs that the students have about their role in the school. Student leadership models often are designed to elevate just the kids who already come to us feeling that they should be leaders. Maybe they're academic high flyers or very popular, or it's the teachers behind the scenes who are getting kids to do this work that's supposedly reflecting student voice. So at Belong Hub, we're asking a pretty radical question. What if every learner felt that they truly belonged? And the school really reflected the sense that every kid mattered and every child had a right to make an impact in the community. We know that belonging is not just about being a name on the roll call, but feeling like you matter in the school and you can have an impact on the environment. And so we know educators want to create this, but it's hard when you have so many other things on your plate to intentionally create space and platforms for every student to collaborate, to learn the skills and mentality of, I have a role here and I can make a change. And so we have created a suite of tools that we're going to introduce to you today to make it possible in all different contexts to elevate every student and help them feel like the school reflects them. We're going to start off with introducing Wendy Toole. She is a teacher in Portland, Maine, and she's going to talk about her students. And this is a picture of her gorgeous students and Wendy with them. And she's going to tell the story of how she used some of these Belong Hub tools to move her kids from a place of really feeling marginalized and maybe not part of the larger community to feeling empowered. Wendy, I'll hand it over to you.
Hi, I'm Wendy Toole. I'm an ESOL teacher in Portland, Maine. In the fall of this school year, I began working at Baxter Academy, a small STEM school that has 5 English language learners now, all Portuguese, all from Angola, newcomers to the United States. Besides, the school itself has about 350 students, mostly white, mostly born and raised in New England, English speakers. Besides teaching English lessons, I was also these students' advisors, concerned with their academic performance in all of their classes and concerned with their social adaptation to the school community. It was this last task that stumped me. Having taught in 3 previous high schools, this particular school is the most friendly of all. The administration and the school leaders are so welcoming. The school vibe for students and staff is warm. And yet, all 5 of my advisees told me they felt insecure and out of place. A mutual friend and educator recommended that I reach out to Rachel Thrash and Belong Hub for help. First, Rachel gave us materials to prepare for our upcoming workshop with her. These surveys and writing prompts helped the students identify frustrations around exclusion that they were feeling in our school community. I hadn't realized how insecure these students were feeling about their lack of English proficiency. They felt like they were a burden to the teachers, and they feared that the other students thought they lacked intelligence. Because I was so busy with the nuts and bolts of day-to-day teaching and administrative tasks, I was grateful that Rachel was going to swoop in and help with these social dynamics at school. When Rachel came to our school for a 2-day workshop, she immediately created an atmosphere where my students felt comfortable about being honest around their insecurities. Through conversations, games, brainstorming, the students admitted that despite the school's effort at inclusion, they felt isolated and insecure about their perceived notion that the bulk of the school community was not interested in getting to know them. Crucially, Rachel steered them away from identifying as victims. Rather, she prompted the students to take next steps into their own hands. She basically empowered them with the challenge of what can you do to build the community and connection that you want in this building, while telling me you're their advocate with the faculty and the administration. You need to help school leaders understand their perspective and consider more ways to include them. Rachel helped the students organize 2 community building activities that they would take the lead on. 2 of them decided to organize an extracurricular soccer club, tapping into a city league that plays pickup games and hosts tournaments at a nearby park. The other 3 decided to host a checkers tournament. The students tested their confidence and social bravery as they promoted these programs throughout the late winter and early spring. They visited advisories, they posted flyers, and spread the word to classmates whom they identified as friendly and approachable. They coordinated with one of the engineering teachers to use the school's 3D printer to create game pieces for the big day. They learned to write professional emails and how to fill out the school form for soliciting charitable contributions. They recruited a small core group of regular attendees for after school and Saturday soccer fun. The checkers tournament was a success, and the day was a celebration of all of their efforts. They organized snacks, prizes, and party bags for everyone who attended. The students felt especially triumphant when several attendees asked enthusiastically, will there be another checkers tournament soon? Perhaps most importantly, these students have prompted a conversation amongst school leaders that will affect school policy around newcomers. They are asking to be included. They are showing a willingness to engage. 2 of the students are thinking about presenting at next year's New England Youth Identity Summit, a prestigious event in Portland each spring for students and educators from all over New England to share ideas. Checkers and soccer are a fun starting point, but Rachel's work has given me key talking points to bring to the administration around classroom structure and academic success. In our current anti-immigrant political climate, our school leaders are especially eager to make these students feel safe. The onus is on us, the non-immigrant community members, to make institutional changes that benefit everyone. I'm grateful to Belong Hub for helping my students feel less vulnerable and more empowered to change their high school experience for the better.
Thank you, Wendy. And I'm grateful to Wendy to bring us in and share her journey, and certainly the students who really dove into the project and had faith and a growing confidence in their ability to lead and not just step back, but step in. And the Belong Hub Leadership Kit, we built it with this intention because, as Wendy noted, it's really difficult when you have so many things on your plate to also be helping students intentionally take a role, and a strong role in collaborating, creating change, being aware of what needs to change. And so our 7 interactive kit tools within the kit very intentionally help students, as Wendy noted, first feel safe and then move toward understanding that they have a right to be part of their community and to do something, and then to give them the guidance and support to create tailored solutions that develop their impact. And so what I'm going to do is go through the different tools so you can see the philosophy behind them, and how each part of these tools goes back to this idea that you belong, you have a right to share your voice and your perspective. And we assume that you don't already know how to do this because oftentimes initiatives in schools, we forget to scaffold the different elements of collaboration and teamwork and problem solving. And so all of this is built into the kit with a real intention to make it appealing, a low threshold so every kid can be involved, and beautiful. My partner is a designer, and he very intentionally creates this with an idea that kids want to touch it. Oftentimes our kids are feeling pretty isolated. All of their work is on a computer. We want them to embody this sense of collaboration and problem solving. So our first tool is this deck of cards. I have it in front of me as well. And it's a social card game and icebreaker that we begin when groups get together to connect them. And it was developed with students at the International School of Helsinki, but also with an intention to build social emotional wellness and a community-oriented spirit. So it asks questions like, what is one problem that you solved that was hard at first? And this helps kids who are coming in, maybe a senior and a first year student, along with a number of different teachers. They're already making assumptions about each other. They're perhaps feeling a little nervous about sharing their perspective. It gives them an opportunity to listen to each other, feel heard, and build connections beyond the artificial connections that we silo students. And what we found again and again, and we've done this in many different schools, is how this helps people feel a stronger sense of community. And certainly this worked beautifully with Wendy's students, even kids who knew each other well. It helped them get to know me, but it also helped them say and share things they wouldn't normally in a different environment. Once they're feeling that sense of connection and a little bit more brave about sharing their voice, our next step is to introduce them to a survey tool. And teachers and students work together to provide this survey, which is the Everyone's Voice student survey. And it's based on the student voice continuum out of Penn State by Dana Mitra that explains to kids that it's possible for them to take a real role in partnership with educators in order to have an impact on the school. Oftentimes, because of their traditional sense of what student leadership is, they assume only the best and the brightest in their minds should be part of student leadership. And so we ask questions like, how often do you work with teachers and administrators on school decisions? And how widespread is the opportunity for all students to collaborate with teachers or administrators? And this provokes them to have a little bit more of a visionary idea about what student leadership can be. It shouldn't just be isolated to the few. They have a right to be part of it. And this is an important step for them to start to identify, if this isn't where we are on the student voice continuum, how could we make changes to include more people and to motivate more people? Moving from the student voice continuum, now they have some data and some clear insights into what's happening at their school. And we introduce them to a design thinking workshop called What Needs to Be Done. And as we know, design thinking allows people to collaboratively empathize with the greater community and say, hey, what can we actually do to inspire more people to feel comfortable in this community and to make change? And they start thinking about what is preventing everyone from having a voice in this community. And then they're naming different elements of the situation that's preventing them from making a change. And then we say more visionarily, what are positive outcomes that could result if you were able to find a voice for everyone? So for Wendy's students, they use this process in order to name three things they thought needed to be done in the community. One of them was that they needed the classrooms to be more welcoming. The second one was that they needed some more academic support. And the third one, which was the one that they ultimately decided to work on collaboratively, was They wanted to build community across social groups. And so there's power in naming what is happening in a community rather than just feeling like I feel isolated, or as we saw Wendy's student said, I don't feel valued. But instead to say there are circumstances that are creating that, we can start leaning into them. And that moves us into our next design thinking workshop. What can we do? So if they've named a problem, now we need to give them space and time to actually brainstorm solutions that could work within their environment. And this one is really fun. In all the schools I've done this workshop with, it matches teachers and students together. Oftentimes, students know what is possible for them, what would work with them, but teachers have resources and access to the schedule. And when you build opportunities and platforms for them to work together, they're coming up with tailored solutions that work in their environment. So right now I'm working with a school that the students are feeling a little frustrated that some of the rules have changed partway through the school year. And so they started off in the first design thinking workshop just complaining. And then as we moved into what we can do, they started to say, hey, maybe the teachers don't actually want us to feel this way. Could we come up with an opportunity for the teachers and students to more regularly meet together to discuss policies before they just change? And that's allowing them to feel empowered and to take some ownership and to imagine that their voice matters. All of the parts of our kit intentionally, recursively bring students back to this idea that if you're a change maker, you need to know how to collaborate well. You need to think through all the aspects of the community, and you need to have conversations that are healthy and help build initiatives. And so the next tool in the kit is our Team Together cards. And they are based on best practices around collaboration and teaming. And so they help kids. They've identified a project now. Wendy's kids identified the soccer tournament and they identified the checkers tournament. But they also need to think through as a team, how are we going to do this together? And this gives student teams or adult teams an opportunity to talk through some of the situations that are inevitably going to come up in the team. What if someone isn't completing their work? Well, how are we going to support them? And it sets them up for success in teaming. And then our next tool is oftentimes, and I'm sure all of you as educators can appreciate this, students get a great idea and they get started on it and then nothing happens. And so always this leads in two directions. Either one kid takes all the responsibility on their back and they walk it over the finish line, or a teacher tries to do it, or it just never comes to fruition. And so our next tool is merges design thinking and project management to move projects past the idea phase to help kids think through how to distribute leadership, how to connect to the wider community. I don't know about you, but in my years of student leadership, frequently there were 17 different bake sales planned on the same day because no one's talking to each other. And they haven't even thought through the steps of who needs to know, what space are we using, how are we communicating it. So it helps kids think through how are we going to connect to the wider context, and it captures and tracks information. So if you're a student or rather you're a teacher facilitator of this work, you can actually look at the work they're creating in this is a digital template, and keep track and support them. It remains student led, but you as their mentor are updated about what's going on. I love watching kids dive into this part of the work because, like Wendy's students, for instance, they thought of their projects and suddenly they're sitting down and writing down everything they already know. And then the teachers who are helping them, Wendy and another teacher, are able to say, hey, you know what? You really need to speak to this administrator because they're in charge of planning advisory. And you really could go out to the local store and ask for prizes. So it's an opportunity to integrate intention really meaningfully. And then finally, our last tool is based on the need for students to share what they've done. And we all know reflection is important, but also an authentic audience is important. So as Wendy referenced, some of her students next year are going to share some, or hopefully will share what they've done at the Youth Identity Summit in New England. But this idea that if you have made progress, if you've made a change in your community, it's really important that you're standing behind it and advocating for it. And this helps with students' motivation. It helps with their skill building and communication as leaders. It helps build the visibility and influence that we want them to have in the community. So if we're seeing kids take on a project like listening circles, then we also want them to talk about it so other students can see this is possible. And it gives them a clarity of purpose. Why are we presenting? To whom are we presenting? And what's the best way to present our information? So this is very intentionally the last step in our journey. The impact, actually, I'm going to stop here. The impact that we're seeing in schools is both on the student and on the educators because it's helping bring down the hierarchy. It's giving students and educators a chance to talk openly about what's working in the school community and what can be improved and why the students feel that way. Um, and the more we're having these honest discussions, a student said to me, this conversation helped me go into math class and ask for help because I recognize that teachers actually want to hear from us. Another graduate of the International School of Helsinki, with whom much of this work was developed, said to me, now that I'm in university, I know that when I go to a professor, they're going to want to hear from me because I've learned that educators and students are in this together trying to make a change in the culture. Our kit, and I'll pull it up again, our beautiful kit comes with those 7 leadership tools, and some of them are, hold them in your hand cards, and some of them are something that you download, but they also include facilitation guides. And the facilitation guides are written so that students can be the facilitators of some of these workshops. So they're learning the skills of how to run workshops. There's even pointers like think ahead about, does this, wherever you're holding this workshop, is it inclusive of everyone? Can everyone get there? Have you checked on that you can actually use that room? Or educators can use it, or even ideally, they can use it together. Our kit also comes with 3 hours of consultation because we know educators are busy, and this is the kind of work that we did with Wendy, where we help fit it to your situation. So this can work with a really small group of students. It can work with, we've done it with whole advisories. We've done it with the student leadership team. So it can work with learners who already identify themselves as leaders or those who are just coming to that idea of themselves. And then finally, we ask to have a year-end follow-up meeting because we want to hear how this is working in your community. Quite honestly, I am extremely passionate about student voice and co-constructing learning and inclusivity. And I want to hear how your students are using this work and help them find opportunities to share their voice wider. So join the New England Youth Identity Summit or come and talk to another group of students who's just getting started on this work. And that reinforces the value of it for your students and for future students. I want to open this up to questions. I just threw a lot of information at you, and Wendy told her beautiful story. Is there anyone out there who would like to ask a question about their context or what Wendy learned or the philosophies behind what we're developing?
Can I put my hand up?
Sarah.
I'm I'm so interested in this whole process because it doesn't only apply to student leadership, right? If a lot of schools got this right with their adult leaders, it would be phenomenal as well. And so, having experienced the students that you taught, Rachel, in Helsinki on a number of occasions, different students in leadership, one of the things that was really impressive about the projects that they had been involved in was their ability to be able to articulate what had happened through that process and how their learning had developed. I imagine that for Wendy is an important reflection on the work of your students that you mentioned at the beginning, and just watching how they're able then to articulate that process. Wendy, would you be able to give us some kind of reflection on that, on where they didn't feel seen at the beginning, but they felt empowered by the end of this process? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I can give two examples. One is from one of the boys who organized the checkers tournament. He was very nervous communicating with administration about getting approval for when could we use the great room, when would kids be allowed to miss their advisories to attend the checkers tournament. There were some other permissions that he needed from admin, and we have the nicest admin. I know that, but he was he I think part of it was just historically coming from schools where the directors were not as engaging with the students and maybe a little more autocratic from what he was saying. He didn't even want to send an email. So I helped with that. And then when admin didn't respond, which is so typical because they're so busy, but he took that completely personally, that he was pestering, that he shouldn't be bothering them, that he had made a misstep. So the back and forth, me coaching him, no, they're busy, send another email, here's how you do a follow-up email. That was a steep learning curve, but very, very rewarding for him in the end to have admin come back. Oh, so sorry, we're so busy. Yes, okay, here are the dates. He gained a lot of confidence in talking to superiors in the building and the powers that be, so that later in the semester when he had to, I say he because he was the one in the group, as Rachel described, they divvied responsibilities. Well, he ended up being the one responsible for when you go outside the building and solicit contributions, there's a particular form that the school has you fill out, and so he had to talk to our financial person about that. And this time he was he led the way. I supervised. He was figuring it out, and with confidence. So that was just very cool, because this was a boy who already had a lot of confidence, but not in this context. And then my second example would be, it's a little bit what Rachel said about the student who went and asked for help in math class. One of the girl, Edna, the one girl in the group, she was feeling very overwhelmed in her academics and feeling like she was falling short. And she was in many ways, because this school doesn't have a robust ESOL program. And so these kids were floundering in mainstream high school academics when their English proficiency is still elementary school. But what happened is, when she was telling me like how different teachers were trying to include her and were trying to scaffold to support her, I could hear how all the teachers were trying. I knew that, but I could also see that she was having the most success in her biology class. And so I encouraged her to talk to the biology teacher about what the teacher, was doing well, why that was working. And here's a girl who according to the biology teacher, was not talking in class the first few months of fall semester. But when Edna and the teacher and I started communicating, which wouldn't have happened if not for Rachel sort of getting to the bottom of Edna's academic experience in all of her classes, then Edna started to speak up in class, and the teacher started to send me emails saying, oh, she was a rock star today. She was the only one who knew blah, 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 and Edna started to shine, not just with her own like abilities and growth, but also like actually doing some of the work or preparing for quizzes better than some of her classmates. And that just gave her so much confidence. And I don't think that momentum would have happened, or Edna would have felt brave enough to speak up one-on-one to the teacher initially and then in front of the group. If we hadn't been doing this Belong Hub work alongside of Edna's biology experience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Michelle.
Well, I have to congratulate you, Rachel, and your partner for such an amazing model. Oh my goodness, it is really amazing. And one of the things that you mentioned in terms of the process is that you were using design thinking and project management. And I was looking up design thinking and how now it's becoming pervasive in different fields, like UX design. You know, the kids love video games. And so a lot of the thinking that goes into video game preparation, they can use design thinking for that, product design, web design, visual design, et cetera, et cetera. And also project management is ubiquitous. Like many different organizations actually hire people to become project managers. And here you have established a model in giving students voice. You're teaching them those skills at this very, at the start there. And or in high school, if you will. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing. And I just was wondering, is there a way that they can leverage this? Maybe have their own little resumes showing that they were involved in the Belong Hub project in their school and develop a resume to show the skills that they've gained and start chronicling this so that they can use that later, maybe in college or as they apply for jobs in high school and college?
So Michelle, I love that question. And it's an interesting question when we talk about, sometimes people will say, well, this is a different form of student leadership where kids don't necessarily get to put on their resume, I was the treasurer of the student council. Instead, they did something. And what we're noticing is that that gives students an opportunity when they apply to university or they think about their career prospects later on to not write something that, frankly, school admissions departments are seeing 8 million kids with some role here or there, but instead to be able to tell their story that says, I noticed a problem in my school and I made a significant change with it. And these were the steps, and these were the ways in which I worked collaboratively with other people to solve for the problem. And frankly, these were some of the problems that didn't work out. None of these solutions, Wendy's soccer tournaments, or as I told you, the school I'm working with where kids are creating a faculty student commission, that's not going to change everything, but it's going to begin to make an impact. And so to give students the tools to actively discuss and explain what worked and what didn't work is a real gift for them and quite transferable to other problems they'll run into in their life. And of course, every country has a different way of doing the university process, but in the United States, a lot of it is narrative based, a lot of the applications where you really stand out. And to be able to talk about, I started up a BIPOC listening circle because I noticed that some kids were really feeling disenfranchised and I wanted to give them a space. Now that's a story you can tell and really differentiate yourself and feel confident doing the same when you head off to a new stage in your life.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. So if we don't have any more questions, I'm just going to end with a little story to explain why I care so much about this. I've had the privilege of working in a number of schools where students are really represent the range of learners. So we have high flyers and we have kids who are learning with learning challenges, and we have kids who are coming in with different proficiency in English. And I've seen them when there's an opportunity to take care of each other, to make a difference, to express themselves, really thrive. And it's not always the kids you would expect. Frequently, it's the kids who have come to finding their voice because they want to help others. And this is the most exciting work I've ever done in my educational career. It's the kind of work that gives you those goosebumps as an educator. But I know that it's hard to recreate that in all schools. And that's why we made this, to give educators the opportunity to level the playing field for everyone, and to feel that sense of excitement when they've empowered all kids to feel like they matter in their community. So I have one ask for people. If you're interested in this work, please share this video. You're going to receive the video at the end. Share it out with other people who are trying to make school fit everyone and trying to empower everyone. And then make a meeting with us. If you're curious about how this could work in your context, we'd love to hear what some of your challenges are, if this could work, or if not, why not? And we can learn. This is all part of the co-creation. On our website, it's easy to hit a button, say make a meeting. I'd love to hear what your learners are facing and the potential you're seeing with them. But thank you all for being here. I wish you the best of luck in the last few weeks of the school year, and hope to catch up as we move into 25, 26.
Rachel and Wendy, thank you so very, very much. And thank you everybody for being here today. It was great to have a really good number on the call, and take up Rachel's offer and being able to contact them at any time and find out more or share your stories too. Thank you very, very much. We'll say goodbye for now then. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Sarah.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sarah.
Wendy. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you,
thank
Rachel.
you.